Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. With this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a GeForce RTX 4080 Super in Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. This one is the Founders Edition model of the card. We are running it with the latest Nvidia drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Ups. GPU 0 says bar is also enabled there. And over on left, I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X 3D CPU with half of its cores disabled, making it the same as a Ryzen 7 7800X 3D and 32GB of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? And let's go over the settings first. I am starting at 4K resolution, and I'm also going to test this one at 1440p and 1080p. I'm using 100 FOV, no frame rate limits, and the epic settings without motion blur, 69% sharpness, nice, and DLSS is set to DLAA. This means that we're just applying the anti-aliasing from DLSS, and the resolution scale is still at 100%. This gives us like 1 or 2 less FPS than just native with TAA, or native with no anti-aliasing whatsoever, but that looks really bad, super shimmery, okay? Everything else is set to the preset. We're not using frame generation yet, and we're here inside of the game getting 40s, stuttering as well, because, well, this game stutters a lot, of course, and I guess it's slightly faster than the RX 7900 XTX that we saw yesterday. Maybe like, what, 3 or 4 FPS faster than that card. I think that one was roughly in the lower 40s. This is in the upper to mid 40s sometimes. What time is it, by the way? It's 9:23 a.m. and it looks super dark already. You know what? I wish this game was a bit brighter, or it had better lighting maybe, coming from the sun and so on, sun rays and stuff. Obviously, this is post-apocalyptic, so it's more of a muted tone, but that would look so much better in my opinion. Anyway, that's not why we're here. We're testing the performance, and performance-wise, this is actually not bad for 4K native resolution. It's getting around, what, like 13 or 15 less FPS than the RTX 4090, which is in line with what to expect. This is around 25 to 30% slower than the 4090 after all. Overall, it's still going to be a playable experience. Doesn't really drop from like 40 FPS, I guess. Maybe it does into the 30s with some stuttering, but that's about it. Worst case scenario, you know. And although obviously the game is not well optimized whatsoever, and the 4080 Super is a very strong GPU, it should be capable of achieving 60 plus FPS all of the time in a game like this at 4K resolution, native, and max settings. But the fact that the game uses software ray tracing just kills performance on everything, and it's UE5 as well. That's why it stutters so much with reversal stuttering and so on. I mean, it's what we're used to now, right? In 2024, 2023, sometimes we saw the same thing happening, you know. There are enemies there. Interesting. Did they spot me already? Yes, they did. They're shooting at me. Can't even see them properly, even at 4K. There we go. One down. Come on, 2 down. They threw a grenade. Let me just go in this direction. Okay. Where are the others? There's one here. Oh boy. See, boy, it's jammed. It's jammed. Come on, buddy. Do that. This reminds me so much of Far Cry 2, where guns could be jammed. Gems could be gunned. Yes. Where? I don't see him. What the heck? Okay, let me heal myself. There he is. Yes, thank you. Oh, it's jammed again. It's jammed again. Come on. Come on. Unjam it, please. Fix the gun. Thank you very much. There we go, finally. Wasted a bunch of bullets there, but we got the bastards. Now, you could use frame generation on top of native resolution here, but with a baseline of 40-ish frames per second, it will feel super, super laggy in terms of the input lag. So I'm not going to enable that until we have 60 FPS as a baseline. And let's enable DLSS on quality now, okay, which is 66% resolution scale. But here in this game, it looks pretty much the same as native resolution. I'm using a 42-inch 4K monitor at the moment. I might be able to tell that maybe things are slightly less sharp at very far away distances, and like those power lines over there are a little bit aliased compared to native resolution, but it's so tiny of a difference, guys. It doesn't matter at all. If you have a 4080 Super and you really want to play Stalker 2, well, this is the way to go. 4K max settings. if you have 4K panel, of course. With DLSS quality, it's going to work extremely well here with this GPU. Not going to go there, actually. I'm going to go back to the other area, and I'm going to eat something so we can regenerate some stamina faster. Is that how it works? I'm not sure. I'm still not sure how some things work in this game. Also, guys, there's a lot of pop-in issues in this game. You can see trees popping in. You can see the details, like, look at that. In the houses as well, popping in. It's crazy in terms of pop-in issues, this game. I really don't like that. Starting to stutter a bit here, not because of the GPU, it's just because of the Unreal Engine 5 that it's using. And also, it is starting to become CPU bound. Yes, a 7800X3D will bottleneck 4080 Super at native, actually at quality. What the hell? That animation looked like it was in 5 FPS or 15 FPS. But yeah, quality DLSS, epic settings at 4K resolution. Sometimes you'll be CPU bound, as you can see there, 90% GPU usage. So you'll need the 9800X 3D not to bottleneck this GPU. Obviously, it's just a minor drop in GPU usage here, but yeah. If you don't want CPU bottlenecks with a 4080 Super or a 7900 XTX, you'll need the best CPU available at 4K. See, this is the major issue that we have here in this title. It is very GPU intensive, obviously, and it shouldn't be as GPU intensive because we've seen games that look pretty much the same or like 90% as good and perform 4 times faster, like Metro Exodus, for example. But the CPU performance is absolutely horrendous, especially when you come to this area. Outside of here, in pretty much 90% of the map, I guess, it will be all right. But here, your CPU will get wrecked. So to avoid some FPS drops here and there into like the 50s, which is what we saw, right? Because of the CPU bound scenarios in UE5, you gotta enable frame generation. Also, frame generation in the 40 series enables reflex by default, and with the 30 series GPU, if you enable FSR frame generation plus DLSS quality, make sure to enable the reflex right here, otherwise it will feel really input laggy, okay? And here, I mean, we're getting 80s and 90s. It's not absolutely awful because outside of here, we're going to get up to like 100, 120 frames per second, maybe, in best case scenarios. But here, I can definitely notice the input lag with 80 to 90 FPS. It's not awful. I'm not going to be killing a bunch of people here. Please stop playing copyrighted music. Please stop, shut up. You know what? I said stop it. Thank you. And after playing for about a minute here with frame generation enabled, I guess I got used to it already. Like, you can definitely tell the difference whenever you enable it. It's not going to be as responsive, but then you get used to it, at least in the case of getting like 90 plus FPS. And it still feels fine. You're not going to be able to build a lot of muscle memory, for example, and if you need very quick reactions to shoot at some mutant coming after you that shows up right there and then shows up right there, big stutter there, by the way, you're not going to be able to snap very fast, you know? So the frame generation will definitely be noticeable here, or the input lag from the frame generation will definitely be noticeable. What is this? Where's the money? What? Up your... Hey, Valve. Put this... Hey, Valve. Valve is here. Valve is still alive after all of these years in the Chornobyls. Chornobyl. Oh, it's jammed. No, my gosh. Why is it always jammed? Come on. Let's go. Good stuff. Hello, buddy. How are you going? I feel like I've been here before. Yes, I definitely have in another video. Because I keep going back to the same save game, you know. I don't want to mess my actual progress. Because I'm not as concentrated here and stealthy as I usually am when playing alone. 96 FPS, 59% lows. It sounds good. It's not as great when it comes to the response times once again, or the input lag, but it's passable. If you need that little bit of extra smoothness compared to DLSS quality alone without the frame generation, you can have it. It's going to feel alright, basically. Alright, but maybe... Yeah, you know what? Like, the input lag difference is so big in this game. Even with the reflex stuff and so on. It's crazy, actually. And we're still getting like 70s and 60s out here. It's only going to drop a little bit inside of the town area, which is right there above that or below that Zeppelin looking thingy. I think I would just suck it up, guys, and be ready to drop into the low 60s and 50s around these areas with a bit of stuttering as well. And then play outside of here, shooting enemies and so on with 70 FPS or 60 plus FPS with no input lag, alright, then the frame generation input lag. With the 4090 it was different because it put us at around 120 FPS and then the input lag it's still noticeable, but it's definitely acceptable in my opinion. But here, with 90 FPS, maybe it's a bit too low, but some people will definitely be fine with it. Now, I want to try it with performance DLSS as well, and the frame generation, well, let's disable it first, actually. So, performance DLSS, no frame generation now, and it's getting exactly the same FPS. You can see GPU usage dropped down into the 80% range. That's because we are fully CPU bound at the moment. This is the limit basically of the 7800X 3D in this game. Gets down into low 60s, high 50s at times, with around like 70 FPS maybe on average. Maybe a little bit less than that in this particular area. But out here in the open is where you're going to see the most improvements by going with DLSS performance instead of quality, of course, because it's not as CPU bound. We're now GPU bound, actually, most of the time. 98, 99%, as you can see. Sometimes it fluctuates a little bit still, but it's nothing major. It's nothing like that town over there. And just by stepping outside of it and still looking at it, as you can see, everything is fine because it's not rendering all of the NPCs, I guess, anymore. So if you want close to 100 frames per second out here, shooting enemies and so on, and just exploring, tons of pop in there. Like, look at that. I zoom in and that tree just pops into the image. It's crazy. No! No, the anomaly is wrecking us. God damn it. Okay, so they're up there. This is going to be bad. I think this is still jammed, yes. Let's unjam it, please. Fix it, come on. Yeah, these wires, by the way, barbed wire, are definitely fuzzy. Oh, come on, dude. This weapon is just completely wrecked at this point. Okay, anyway, you get the idea, right? It gets us around the same FPS as quality DLSS did in the town area, but then it increases the FPS to around the same as quality DLSS plus frame generation. But now performance DLSS plus frame generation should be quite a bit smoother. Yes, it is. So we're getting 120s now. And at 120 FPS, once again, it feels pretty decent. Oh my god. Please. Please just die. Oh, thank you. Finally, dude. That took a really long time. And you can get 100 plus over here, apparently. It's not bad. And input lag is also not bad, because it's 100 plus FPS, right? There we go. Maybe I should just get really close to them with the shotguns. They miss a bunch of shots as well. And they don't kill you right away, so... Okay, what time of the day is it? It's really dark at the... It's 4:30 p.m. You gotta be joking. It looks like it's 9 p.m. or something. What the heck? I don't like this. I don't like the weather right now and the lighting of the day. So I might actually just go back to another save game that I have here. And the lighting... See that? It's so much better like this. We got some lighting reflecting off the guns and the water puddles and so on. It looks way better here, right? And also now we're back to this town area, getting 90s, 100 FPS with the performance DLSS plus frame generation. If you must play this game in its current state, which I don't recommend, you know, you shouldn't really buy games that are completely unfinished and broken. These developers have their excuse, though, because, well, yeah, if there's an excuse that's valid, it's theirs. But, yeah, I usually don't recommend anybody to play games or to buy games in these states. But if you must, these are the settings that I would pick with my own RTX 4080 Super to play with. It still stutters quite a bit, but it's not because of VRAM, obviously. It's allocating 10 gigabytes, so no problems. But yeah, it makes things a lot smoother out here, and over there it's still around 100 FPS, so it's doable. It's actually pretty stable right now. And now let's test it at 1440p resolution, guys. I am using the epic settings still, DLAA, no frame generation, so native res just with DLAA. And I don't know if you saw this coming, but at 1440p, well, GPU is actually maxed out at the moment. It's fluctuating a bit, but if I stand still, it's usually at 99%, as you can see. So yeah, the 4080 Super, a beast of a GPU that when it released earlier this year, 2024, it was doing 4K 100 FPS across a plethora of games, actually. All right, native resolution as well, without ray tracing. Yeah, it's doing 70 FPS at 1440p epic settings, just because of friggin' UE5. I wish the developers did this in UE4, honestly, because that engine still looks good. You can push UE4 to look 90% as good as UE5, and it will perform a heck of a lot better. It would probably get us like 130 or 140 FPS with 90% as good graphics, again, and 1440p resolution native. So out here, where you're going to spend a lot of your time, and it's far away from that town area, you actually can get like 80 frames per second at 1440p native resolution. So that's not terrible. It will feel smooth. It will be playable, of course. Well, it will feel smooth when it's not stuttering, that is. But right now it isn't. And yeah, it can be an enjoyable experience. I could even enjoy the game yesterday on the RTX 3060 at 1080p high settings with DLSS quality, around 60, 65 FPS average, some drops into the 50s out here as well. But it was playable, and I could enjoy it. I played for about an hour, but being playable doesn't mean that it should run like this, right? Because it should run a heck of a lot better than this, especially when we have games, again, like Metro Exodus, which look just as good, I guess, and play way better as well. Developers, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 developers, if you're watching this, give us an option in the future to disable Lumen and Nanite like Fortnite does. I really don't care about these very bad quality reflections. If I could disable them and make them screen space reflections and make the FPS double or like 30% higher, I would take it. That's my opinion, but it would go a long way to make the game playable on lower-end systems as well. Now here at 1440p resolution, I'm not going to try quality DLSS. You can, but it's still going to drop to the same values in that city area, and it's just going to look a little bit worse, of course. Actually, you know what? Since we're here, I'm going to apply quality just for you to take a look at the visuals. Still looks good, right? You can tell that it's a little bit more fuzzy in some areas, more noisy in others, but it still looks good. And it gets you 110 FPS out here instead of the normally there, instead of the 80-ish FPS that we were seeing before. But yeah, as you can see, it can still go to a high refresh rate experience, even without the frame generation enabled. But obviously, I think I would prefer to use frame generation on and DLAA here at 1440p, since the baseline FPS were above 60 most of the time. Just gonna load the previous game save. And the main reason why I prefer this over quality DLSS alone without frame generation is, of course, over here you actually see an improvement. With quality DLSS and no frame generation, you don't see an improvement here. It will still drop into the 50s and 60s and so on. And the baseline FPS were already pretty high anyways, to the point where enabling frame generation won't wreck your input lag too much. Over here it gets you 110-ish, sometimes a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher, but outside of here it's going to be 120, I guess. There we go, yeah, 120s. And here the input lag is, in my opinion, super dealable with. It's not a word, right? you get what I mean, right? Yeah, I can deal with this input lag. Also, it seems like we're having some big frame time spikes every now and again, and I have not been seeing that happen that often for some reason in other videos. I don't know. It might be because of the CPU bottleneck or something. happening with the 4080 Super. It's decent in my opinion. I would have no problems playing like this. I would, however, have a little bit of problem playing like quality DLSS at 1440p plus frame generation. Obviously, that will increase your FPS a little bit more, but I feel like lowering it down to 66% resolution scale and then upscaling to 1440p, obviously. But at this resolution, it's not as good of an experience, visually speaking, as 4K was, okay? So you can start noticing a bit more noise to the picture, a bit more fuzziness around the vegetation, blurriness as well overall. But you do get 150 frames per second, so double-edged sword, I guess. If you have a smaller 1440p monitor, like the one that I tested recently, 24 inches, for example, 1440p, PPI is pretty high there. I think it should still look pretty good using these settings. But on my big monitor right now, I can definitely tell the difference, and I would just disable quality DLSS and play with just DLAA, you know? Obviously, going back to the town area, we're starting to stutter again, because it always does whenever you get inside of here. I guess it starts loading all of the NPCs at once, and that's what happens. And GPU usage, it doesn't max out around here. You do gain about like 10 FPS compared to what we saw previously. You do whatever you want, of course. I shared with you my opinions on what I would utilize. You've seen the results. You know what to do. Maybe try it for yourselves as well. Anyway, I'm gonna stop it there, guys, for 1440p resolution testing. Let's go back to DLAA, turn frame generation off. There we go. I'm gonna go down to 1080p, and I'm gonna restart the game to prevent it from having some graphical glitches, which it does very often when changing frame generation settings. And surprise, surprise, it gets the same FPS at 1080p resolution as it did at 1440p resolution, as it did at 4K with performance DLSS and even quality DLSS in this area, of course, because once again, it's CPU bound. GPU usage isn't maxing out, it's around like 80%, I guess, dropping down to the 70s sometimes, going a little bit above it sometimes as well. But yeah, it is what it is. We're reaching the limits of the 7800X3D. This is what the CPU can do. So at this point in the video, 1080p is just a CPU benchmark right now, because GPU is never maxing out, at least back there in the town area, of course. Out here, we can see it go up to 90-something% GPU usage. Yeah, it's still not maxing out at 99%. With the 7900 XTX, I think I saw it maxing out at 99% a little bit more often. But right now it is 98% right there. Okay. You know what? It feels like I'm playing a technical preview of a game in alpha or something like that, and I am doing the testing that the guys should have done, the developers should have done, right? Oh boy. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Goodbye, sir. Please die. No, please, you die as well. Gosh. Come on. Heal. Heal. Go. Go. There we go. There we go. Where is the other one? Where is the other one? How can they see me? There we go. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's how bushes work, right? They can see me through the bushes pretty well, but I'm just looking at the bush and I can't really spot them. Hi. Oh, these are friendly. I almost shot him. So that's it for 1080p. No point in using DLSS quality at this res. It will just wreck your image completely. I don't think a lot of people are playing at 1080p with a 4080 Super, but if you are, I think the way to go is enabling frame generation on top of native res. Baseline FPS were already really good, so enabling FG over it, it's still noticeable, the amount of input lag added to the game, even at 160 frames per second. It's kind of crazy, guys, but again, at 120 it was already manageable, so obviously at 160 plus you can get used to it in like 30 seconds. Doesn't really matter, guys, it's just a little tiny amount of input lag. In the town area we're getting 100 plus frames per second still, kind of the same as 1440p with quality DLSS plus FG. Actually no, it's better than that, definitely. So FG is making a huge difference here at 1080p resolution, since we were heavily CPU bound here. And now we're in the 130s, 140s. Still doesn't get rid of the stuttering though, so that sucks a bit, but It is definitely smoother, and I guess I would enable frame generation. Frame generation is the only way you'll see 60 plus FPS with any card, and the 7800X3D, the second best CPU for gaming in the world at the moment, right? Maybe the 9800X3D will get you 60 plus natively, but come on, you need the best CPU to get 60 plus FPS? What are you doing, developers? Again, like, these guys have their excuse, but most other games that run UE5 also have these issues. So, yeah, in general, what are you doing, developers? Right? Crazy stuff. That's been it for the video. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one in more Stalker 2 videos. And as always, love you all. Bye-bye.